Being great at sales is essential to your business and your career, but you and I both know that the stress of selling and dealing with constant rejection can be an emotional drain. My entire brand, No BS Selling, is based on the belief that professional sales is a skill and not a personality, and that to be better at sales takes constant refinement and a dedication to your craft. This show is for salespeople and entrepreneurs who are committed to improving their sales skills and getting better results, and are sick and tired of the BS game that often happens between buyers and sellers. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Walker McKay. I'll help you and your sales team make selling easier, feel less cheesy, and be more lucrative. It's time to change the rules and level the playing field between you and the people you sell to. You're already good, let's be better. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Walker McKay. Today, I want to talk to you about something that is really kind of near and dear to me, and that is slaying your dragons. What's the stuff you're really scared about and afraid to do that maybe you even realize it's irrational for you to be afraid about, but that you won't do it, that you won't say it or whatever is keeping you from moving ahead in your career or your life? So I have several examples of this. Those of you that listened to my first episode of the podcast, the first one, y'all know I was in the commercial real estate business. And I was in that for 10 or 11 years. I don't really remember which. It's a lot of brain damage. But I was middle of the pack at best. I was not that great at it. I didn't make $1 million a year. I mean, I did okay sometimes. And some years I was an absolute abomination because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I knew a lot about commercial real estate, but didn't know anything about people and selling. And so when I got out of the commercial real estate business, I went into the sales training business. This is after I'd hired a coach, right? I'd hired a coach for a couple of years. That he'd been my mentor and my coach and taught me all those things that I had no idea about dealing with people and having real conversations and being straight up and managing expectations and not being an asshole. Those kind of things, that seemed kind of normal to some people, that were kind of shocking to me. And so I went and met with my old boss from the first commercial real estate company where I worked. His name was Dan. I worked for a big brokerage firm. And when I got out of the business, I went and met with Dan because I thought maybe Dan's a good guy and hell, maybe he could refer me some business or something. And went and met with Dan. And Dan said to me, just kind of an offhand manner, we had a nice conversation. Offhand manner, he said, Walker, the people that are really good in commercial real estate don't ever leave. And that was like a dagger in my heart. He probably didn't mean it towards me or mean anything personal by that, but I took it as personal. I took it personally. It damaged me. I let it damage me. And I carried that around for a long, long, long time. And every time I saw somebody from that company, it was almost, I don't know that I actively did, but I probably sort of hid, right? I stepped away. I stood behind a column. Maybe not literally, but I didn't like to engage because I thought to myself, when they saw me, they saw a loser because I didn't make it. I didn't make it in that business. I wasn't good enough. And here I was training people, and I struggled and I busted my ass. And after a while, I was pretty damn good at this selling training, which, if you can imagine, is pretty hard. Nobody needs it. My competition is gravity. My competition is not other people doing what I do. My competition is people doing nothing. And it took me a couple of years to get up to speed in that, but, got pretty good at it. And very effective, and even had one or two individuals as commercial real estate clients that I worked with who did very well, but I was still afraid of the industry in general. I was afraid of what people thought about me. And about 7 or 8 years into my career, in my first career in the training business, I got invited, ironically, to speak at a commercial real estate regional conference. 150 or so people, not a big crowd, average crowd, decent crowd. And ironically, it was in the audience of that company were a whole bunch of people that I worked with at my first commercial real estate company. The people that would know I was a failure. The people that I knew would remember that I was a failure. It's all in my own head, right? But I was invited to come speak to them about all things, but about sales. And I thought to myself, I started getting all this head trash and started getting all worried. I'm like, why in the world would these people listen to me about sales or selling shit, they know that I couldn't sell what they had. They're not going to believe me. So I'm inside my head and I'm just kind of like, oh my God. And just, anyway, it scared me to death. And I had this talk that I had done for a bunch of other places and I knew it pretty well. And I was ready, but I was nervous. I got to the conference and I looked around the room. I was like, oh my God, there they are. There's some of those people who are making $1 million a year. No, I didn't make it. And here I was to stand up on a freaking stage and tell them about selling. And about 5 minutes before I was supposed to go on, I was looking at my notes and I was like, this is, all right, hide your children's ears. This is bullshit. I can't give this talk. So I'm just going to stand up and tell people the truth. So I got up on stage and I said, I had a talk prepared and I ripped it up and threw it away. What I decided to do instead was just tell you guys the truth. And the truth is, I failed in your business. And I think it's ironic that you guys asked me to come up here and speak in front of you about sales, when that was not something that I excelled in when I was in your business. Most of you people in here now are already doing better than I was doing when I was in the business. I said, but let me tell you a couple things that I wish I had known when I was in the business that would have made me better. And as I saw that, as I said that, I watched people kind of sit back and relax, because I wasn't going to be some show you how I sold $1 trillion worth of whatever it is kind of guy. And I was straight up and I said, here's some things I wish I'd known. And I talked about the concept of managing people's expectations. And I talked about the concept of disqualifying prospects, how not everybody's right for you. About negotiations, when you give something, get something in return. About how if you're really good at selling, what you're really good at is asking questions and listening and understanding the person you're talking to and their situation. And not so much about being an expert in your product. Don't get me wrong. I mean, being an expert in your product, that's table stakes, right? That's what you're expected to have. But it's understanding the person you're talking to, talking with. What are the reasons that they would do what they're doing? Don't assume. Have them tell you. So I talked through that for about, 75 minutes. And I said, at the end of it, my guess is you guys already knew most of that stuff, but I appreciate your taking the time to listen. And maybe this didn't really happen. It's been a long enough time, but I think they stood up and gave me a standing ovation. Maybe that didn't happen, but that's what I remember anyway. And as I left that room that day and I got back in my car to go away, I felt this huge weight fall off of my shoulders. And I said, Walker, you dummy, you didn't have to be afraid of those people all this time. They don't think they're better than you. And if they do, who cares? But that was I called a client of mine who I talked about how afraid I was with this talk. And I told him what happened. He goes, hey buddy, you just slayed the dragon. You slayed that big dragon that's been fire breathing on you and scaring the hell out of you for however many years. And you slayed him. You win. I was like, hell yeah, I slayed the dragon. And it felt so good to have slayed that dragon. I was no longer afraid of people that I'd worked with in the commercial real estate business years before. And this is something that, I believe that most of us have fears that we know are irrational, but to us, they're very rational. Like the other thing I'm afraid of is heights. I'm scared. I cannot stand next to the edge of a building on the top. I don't like being on sheer faces of things. I climbed up a pyramid Mayan pyramid in Mexico one time. I scrambled up to the top and I got to the top and all of a sudden I turned around like, holy shit. And I thought they were going to get a helicopter to get me off the top of that thing because I was too afraid to turn around and come back down. Eventually I did because I got kind of hungry. But I have this, and I know it's irrational, but to me, it's like I'm getting ready to fall off the side of a building. And the same was true with the commercial real estate folks. And another thing I'm really, really scared of, to be more relevant other than me being afraid of heights. I'm afraid, and this will be maybe interesting to some of you guys, I am totally afraid of being embarrassed. it scares the hell out of me to be that I might be embarrassed in front of a whole bunch of people. And I know that probably sounds funny because y'all see me cutting up and making a fool of myself and all those kind of things, but somehow I feel like I have some control of that. But to do something intentionally embarrassing, that really that takes me way out of my comfort zone. And so my coach in New York, the guy who's helped me kind of develop my business and help me market my business, who got me started with this podcast, who helped me with my videos and get ready to work. We're working on a course we're going to go shoot in a couple of weeks. He's been behind all this. He's continually challenged me to up my game. And what I know, what he tells me is, Walker, nobody gives a damn what it is that you know. They don't care what you know. What they care about is your personality. You got to be able to show your personality. And I got to tell you, I think I do that, but on video, I've really struggled with that. And he said, he keep telling me, you need to loosen up some. You need to loosen up some. Loosen up some. I feel like I'm pretty loose, but somehow when you turn the camera on, I'm not that loose. And so he challenged me the other day. He said, think of one of the opinions, one of the things you're going to share, one of the things, the how-tos that you're going to share in your video, and think of a song that represents that. And sing a couple of verses of that song that makes your point before you do the video. I was like, okay. So I turned the video on after that, and he said, no, sing it in the video. So I said, okay, I'll do that, thinking he'd forget about it. And a couple of days went by, and he said, how's that singing video coming? I said, I haven't done that yet. He goes, when are you going to do it? And I said, today. So shit, I was stuck then. So I came across a song that I heard, and I was like, okay, that makes a pretty good point. So I said, I'm going to go shoot that tomorrow morning. And I got to the office at 7:30, and I had a meeting at 7:45, so I had plenty of time, but all of a sudden I found myself, well, it's 7:40, so I don't want to go do this now because that meeting will start in a few minutes. And the meeting was over at 8:30, and I said, well, I got another meeting at 9:30. I got some time. Well, I got to get some water. Got to go talk to somebody else. Whatever. I was afraid to do it. So finally, about 9:15, I said, "Heck with it. Let's go do it." So I went on the back porch, and the song, I'll just embarrass myself again. The song was looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love in too many faces. Right? And the point of the thing was, we as salespeople go out to call on our prospects, and what we hope is that they'll love us, because then we don't have to sell, they just love us. So I did that video, and I sent it up to Hank, my coach, hoping that he would hate it, because that would take me off the hook. And about 8 minutes later, he sent it back and said, "This is great, post it." I was like, holy shit. So I futzed around for about an hour and a half. I called my son, my 13-year-old, and I said, here's what I've done. It's a singing video. Should I post it? He goes, Dad, it's going to embarrass the hell out of you. I'm not sure I'd do it. And I said, well, I've been challenged to do it. He goes, Dad, don't do it. And I said, okay, I'll do it. You can't listen to your kids, right? So I posted it, and I said, holy shit, here we go. I'm about to unleash it. You know what's funny? Damn near nobody watched. I posted on Facebook and LinkedIn, on Twitter. I bet I had 50 people that watched it. Ordinarily, it's first day, it's 300 or 400, and maybe the first day this was 100. Nobody watched, and I was pissed. And it's funny, I texted my coach the next day, and I said, shit, that wasn't so bad. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of that at all. I can't believe I was so afraid of that for so long, even though I'm a terrible singer. It's kind of part of the point. So that was a dragon that I slayed, was putting myself out there where I could be embarrassed. But that's how people get attention. And attention means dollars in today's world. That's what it means. Attention means dollars. And I was exaggerating when I said people don't care what you know. But if everybody knows the same thing you do, why in the hell would they give you money? Because you're the one that got the attention. So I got to do more goofy shit like that. And now I'm more okay with that than before. We'll see. I still can't sing, and I may not do it anytime soon, but I'm not particularly afraid of that. Those are the dragon that I slayed. And the last thing, which I hope will be actionable advice for you, I'm going to ask you, what is the dragon you need to slay? What's the thing that you have to fix? What's the thing you've been afraid to do? The phone call you've been afraid to make, the meeting you've been afraid to have, the conversation that you've been afraid to have. And what would happen if you did it and it went well? And then think about what would happen if you did it and it just went terribly. How bad would that be? And I realized for my little video thing, if I did that and it went badly, oh well, who gives a shit? I'll be embarrassed, but I'm always, I get embarrassed fairly frequently. It's out there now, nothing I can do. So the actual advice I have for you is to create, okay, go ahead and cover your children's ears again. Ready? Okay, they're covered. I want you to create what I call a fuck it list. The kind of thing where you just say, fuck it, let's do it anyway. What that is think about there are prospects out there in your marketplace right now that'd be very profitable for you. Maybe they're big. Maybe there's somebody that you screwed up a long time ago and you lost the business and you've been afraid of calling them back. I got a bunch of those. Who could you say, because remember, you're the one that remembers that probably more than them. Nobody's perfect, everybody messes up. Maybe it's somebody you've never called on before, maybe they're new in the marketplace, maybe it's a buddy of yours that you never called on for business because you've been afraid to, didn't know how to handle it. Make the list. Maybe it's something, and it doesn't have to be business, but I just like to relate to that. What's something in business you need to do that you say, fuck it, I got to do this? Create the list of a dozen prospects that you've been afraid to call, or a dozen people that fired you a long time ago, and now it's time to call them back because their world changes every 90 days. And maybe you look at it and go, shit, I can't do that. And you say, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And so when you're working on your fuck it list, always be adding to the top and working on making the phone calls, doing the things that you need to do. What you'll find is the downside is generally almost never as bad as you thought it would be. And if it is as bad as you thought it would be, typically the impacts of that aren't nearly as bad as you thought they would be. We make this stuff up in our own mind. But think of the difference that if you have a list that you continue to add to, and it starts with 12, and you knock off 5 of them and add 5 more, and then knock off 5 of them and add 5 or 6 or 7 more, and continue to work on that for a year, and you close 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of business on your fuck it list. How could that make a difference in your world? Another example of this, probably when you got into business, some other people told you, maybe somebody had your territory before you or who's in the business said, don't call him that guy, he's a jerk, he'll never buy from us. Or you've said to yourself, they've got a great relationship with my competitor, no reason to call them, they're not going to switch. I want you instead, I want them to add them to your list and say, fuck, I'm going to call them anyway. That's how, when you slay your dragon, you realize, damn it, I can't believe I waited this long to call those people. Now they're doing business with me. It might have started 3 years ago if they knew I was alive and knew I cared. Work on that. Challenge yourself. Scare yourself a little bit. Because that's where the magic is. That's where the magic happens. You don't have to make a singing video. God, I hope you don't anyway. No BS sales team, I love you. You're great. Thank you for listening. If you want more, we got a newsletter. If you want to sign up for the newsletter, it comes out every week. It's got one of my videos on it. I think this week has the singing video on it. It has some articles that I'm reading, sometimes has a book list on it, has a copy of my podcast. So if you want a way to kind of consolidate, get a lot of information there, if you text the number 66866, text NOBS. Text NOBS to the number 66866. You'll get in our newsletter, start getting it every week. Probably some stuff in there that get a lot of comments on it. Hey, that was great. Thanks for sharing that with me. And a lot of it's stuff I haven't written or created, just other stuff I'm reading I think it might be interesting to you. Something else I might mention, I'm starting a coaching program, a one-on-one coaching program for higher level salespeople and entrepreneurs. Maybe it's people who are managing a team, who've never had any kind of training on how to manage a team, that want somebody to be a coach or a mentor for them to help them do that, and they want to have it on a one-on-one basis. You're this person if you're always kind of frustrated because you don't know, you want to get better, but you're not sure how, and you're challenged, and you say, damn it, there's some customers I just can't seem to close. Or maybe I got these employees, I got these sales guys, and they're not doing all that they need to do, but I don't know how to get them to do it. I'm not even sure if I have the right people. That's probably the time to reach out and call me. Let's have a no BS conversation. I promise I won't feel any pressure to sell you anything. We'll just figure out if you need my help. Then we'll figure out how to make it work. Email me at walker@walkermckay.com or call me, 803-917-2817. Thank you very much for listening. If you like this podcast, rate it and review it. That helps me a ton. Share it with somebody else who might need to hear this. Good luck on your bucket list and slaying your dragons.